The Minnesota Wild won their fifth game in a row against the New Jersey Devils last night. What were some of the keys to the win? Plus, Kirill Kaprizov is officially on fire. The Wild goalies have started to round into form, and we preview a huge matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday, all coming up today on Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen every day. And just as a reminder, Locked on Wild is free and available wherever you listen to podcasts. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, we take a look at the Wild's 5-2 win over the New Jersey Devils with some of the big keys to the Wild's fifth win in a row. We also look at Kirill Kaprizov, who officially has caught fire, and the Wild goaltending situation starting to get to the level we saw last year. Plus, we take a look at a huge matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs coming up tomorrow. My name is Seth Topal, host of Locked on Wild, veteran Minnesota sports content producer with over a decade's worth of experience covering your favorite Minnesota sports teams, and now covering the Minnesota Wild as part of Locked on Wild. Happy Friday to you. We've got a double feature Friday coming up. Make sure to check out later today our crossover episode with Trey Matthews of Locked on Devils for a further dive into the Wild's win against New Jersey. So what we're going to do today, we're going to focus on the game itself here for probably the first segment or so. Then we'll take a look at some of the bigger numbers. Kirill Kaprizov starting to catch fire and some of the reasons behind that. And then we will turn our attention to the Toronto Maple Leafs coming to town. They have also won 5 games in a row and should be an absolutely unbelievable matchup between both the Wild and the Maple Leafs. So happy to have all of that for you here to get your weekend started on the right foot. And speaking of getting their weekend started on the right foot, Minnesota Wild with a 5-2 win over the Devils to improve to 16-6-1, 5 wins in a row. And it was a different script than we've seen from this Wild team so far this year. Got off to an early lead, able to withstand a push by the opponent, and expanded the lead late in the game. The first and third line, really the ones that took care of the action here in this game. And we have been so fortunate to see other guys step up and really play the lead in terms of scoring and just in taking over the game in general. It was the Kirill Kaprizov show, and it has been for the last couple of games. But he really took over and put on a clinic against the Devils. He had the goal right in front of the net, in which he was able to sneak one past Mackenzie Blackwood, and then had a goal later in the game. All in all, a 3-point night for Kaprizov, nearly a 4-point night, if not for a pretty brilliant save by Blackwood that would have given Kaprizov another point with an assist. And we'll talk more about Kaprizov coming up in just a bit, and some of the things that he has been able to do over the last several games, getting back to his form from last year, which I think is a welcome thing for Minnesota Wild fans everywhere throughout the state to see some of that production come back for Kirill the Thrill. Some of the other things to pull from this game: Kaapo Kahkonen was good for the second consecutive start. Did allow the breakaway goal to the Devils to make it 3-2 at that point, but this Wild team, they adjusted and they answered. And so yes, it did get to 3-2, but then the Wild scored to make it 4-2, and they later tallied to make it 5-2. They nearly scored as the final buzzer sounded. But um, nonetheless, a 5-2 win, and just you look the up and down the stats, up and down the box score, at just things to pull away from this game. And the Wild's again 0 for 4 on the power play. Um, Honestly, as I alluded to in yesterday's episode, I, I mean, yes, you can pinpoint and kind of point to like, yes, we need to be shooting more on the power play as opposed to just being super selective. But like, if you're just chugging along again, as this team has, um, the power play is nothing but a speed bump in the course of the normal game flow, with the way the Wild have been taking care of business. I mean, they outshot the Devils 38-31, out hit the Devils 14-10. They won 34 faceoffs compared to 28 for the Devils. They held New Jersey to 0 for 3 on the power play. Um, just all in all, just one of the more convincing wins that we've seen on the season. And like I said, it was a little bit of a script flipper, in that the Wilds got out to an early start and really controlled the tempo in period one. The Devils made their comeback in period two, but then the Wild able to push it to a more convincing number by the time we got to the third period, to pick up the win. Just some other notes to look at in this game. Obviously, the Wild's got a goal and 2 assists from Ryan Hartman, who continues to just um, absurdly be the far and away leader of this team, the MVP of this team so far, and just continues to dominate. Um, and it all comes down to just simply like for Hartman, just simply wanting to shoot more and doing it. And he has been the guy that gets everybody going, and just he got Kaprizov going. You put that line together, and here are some interesting numbers from the game, courtesy of Brett Marshall, friend of the show from the Sound the Foghorn podcast. The Kaprizov, Hartman, Zuccarello line in 5-on-5 in 9 minutes and 31 seconds on ice. They outshot the Devils 21-7 in shot attempts, 13-5 in shots, 12-4 in scoring chance advantage, 5-2 in high danger advantage, 4 goals for and 0 goals against, 1.35 expected goals for, and just 0.23 expected goals against, and 7 total points on the night. Ryan Hartman also 10 shots and joins a select list of Minnesota Wild players to get to that 10-shot mark in a game. Unbelievable stuff, and this offense continues to just click. As Michael Russo notes, the Wild 4-0 in their 5-game homestand that ends against the Leafs on Saturday, who are 15-2 in their past 17 games. The Wild have scored 28 goals in their last 5 home games, and they have 4 or more goals in all 8 of their home wins. So just dominating at home, continuing to make a lot of these games look easy, and New Jersey really didn't stand a chance. So just an unbelievable game, a great win, and it sets up what's going to be just a huge matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday. We are going to dive next a little deeper into some of Kirill Kaprizov's recent torrid play, and some of the reasons as to why he is able to be so effective and has been so effective for this team. That is coming up next here on Locked On Wild. You listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone so you can listen to all the latest episodes. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line so your family can harness all that brain power too. And the power of one of America's largest 5G networks so you can do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money you'll save and all that knowledge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save, Boost Mobile. Free phone limited to new customers and one per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverage not available everywhere or for all phones and networks. See boostmobile.com for details. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild. And once again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. We continue to hit and achieve new milestones in terms of listens and downloads with the show. So thank you to everybody that has been tuning in since the start and continues to join the show on a daily basis. We're glad to have you, and we'll continue to keep you as up to date and informed as possible on the Minnesota Wild. Let's talk Kirill Kaprizov. And for whatever led to Kaprizov having the slow start to the season, just listen to some of these just insane numbers that Kaprizov has been part of over the last few weeks. Minnesota Wild PR tweeting out, Wild forward Kirill Kaprizov has 3 points on the night, 2 goals and an assist. It's his 5th career multi-goal game, 1st of the season, and 7th of his career. 7th career 3-point contest, his 4th of the season. He owns 10 points, 4 goals, 6 assists in his season high 4-game point streak. That's not the craziest number that that Brett threw out that I wanted to pass along. In the last 8 games, the Minnesota Wild have outscored opponents 20-4 with Kirill Kaprizov on the ice. On those 20 goals, Kaprizov has contributed a point on 17 of them, registering a primary point, goal, or first assist on 14 of the 17 goals that Kirill Kaprizov has contributed at least a point on of the 20. So he is getting back to the level that we saw last season. And I think it stems to having a guy at center in Ryan Hartman that is being way more aggressive this year than he has in years past. And also his favorite line mate on the team, Mats Zuccarello, who is just the perfect complement for what Kaprizov's going to try to do on any nightly basis. And so you put those 3 together and they just dominate. And so all this juggling that we did, Joel Eriksson Ek on the top line, Victor Rask back up on the top line. I think Ryan Hartman may be the glue that that leads to Kaprizov fully unlocking his abilities. And he's up to 28 points on the season, which is tied for 6th in the NHL. And if we go back to the November 18th game against the Dallas Stars, 7 games in that span, and Kaprizov has not scored a point in one of them. And that was the win against the Devils 3-2 in the shootout at New Jersey. But, you know, the Stars game, he had a goal and 3 assists for 4 total points. Against Florida, he had a goal and an assist. He had an assist against Tampa Bay. No points against New Jersey. Then a goal and 3 assists against Winnipeg, an assist against Tampa Bay, and a goal and an assist against Arizona. And now what he was able to do tonight with 2 goals and an assist. And if he gets to where he's, you know, taking games over and dominating on his own, this team's going to be frightening because they've won all season with other guys stepping up and contributing goals. If their main goal scorer gets to where he's taking all of the, you know, the scoring opportunities and he's cashing in on even a good majority of them, then what do you do? Because if you throw any extra attention to Kaprizov at that point, he will make you pay because everybody else on the lineup has shown that they can step up and they can take that pressure off when needed. And so this team, you know, I said it at the beginning of this lengthy homestand for the Wild that I thought something special was going to happen, and I'm not going to fully reveal it because I um, I don't want to jinx it, but I will just say that since that decree, that's when the Wild started to really pick it up and get rolling on the season. So Kaprizov is doing the stuff that we saw last year that we love, that we adore, and he looks like he's settling in and really starting to feel himself and get to where he's going to do some things on the ice that are just going to absolutely just drive people insane, drive opponents insane, and um, continue to just help the team win these games. It's absolutely um, it's crazy. And now, as Sound the Foghorn also alludes to, with those 3 points in the win against the Devils, Kaprizov is now on a 100-point pace for an 82 game season. So if you project it out, 32 goals, 68 assists, 100 points even on the season in 82 games. And you look at some of the other numbers that he has, on pace to be a plus 39 on the season, on pace for 4 power play goals, 11 power play assists, 7 game winners, and 278 shots on net. If you look at what he did last year, he finished the season, and of course, I'm not going to get what I was looking for there, but shooting, at starting to get to kind of that level that we would like to see with Kaprizov shots, and I think if Hartman and Zuccarello can continue to take some pressure off him on that top line, he's just going to keep cashing in the points. And um, how the stock has risen since the start of the season, in which we waited a few games for Kaprizov's first goal. He's come a long way since then, and this team has as well. On the flip side, Kevin Fiala again had some good opportunities and he just can't buy a goal right now, and it's frustrating to watch. I'm sure it's frustrating for him to be part of it, but if the Wild do not end up trading him for JT Miller or otherwise, um, the goals are going to come at some point. This as we just the big theme to take away from this team right now is the fact that we don't have to rely on those guys makes it so that the pressure is, I think, less. Um, at least on these guys, they want to score. Of course, they want to score, but the pressure is lesser because other guys are stepping up, and so hopefully that kind of helps ease it. But Fiala's going to get a bunch going here too. Would love nothing more if that would happen tomorrow, but um, nonetheless, a good stretch for Kaprizov, and he's been doing just unbelievable things over the last handful of games. The one other note I wanted to pass along, because we did mention it, and we did actually, flat out say, "Are you concerned with the Wild's goaltending to where it stands in the season so far?" Brett Marshall again. Over the last 5 Minnesota Wild games, Cam Talbot and Kaapo Kahkonen have combined for 3.69 goals saved above expected, a dramatic improvement from the beginning of the season. They haven't allowed more than 2 goals during that stretch, and the Wild have outscored their opponents 24-9 over their last 5 games. So goaltending up, Kaprizov up, depth guys continuing to be up. There's not a lot to not like about what this team's doing so far, and so just continuing to enjoy it and hoping that it extends further and further and further into the year and leads to some better things down the line. We'll finish up today's episode of Locked on Wild by looking at the Toronto Maple Leafs, a big one for the Minnesota Wild as they try to finish off the homestand on a high note. We will look further into the Toronto Maple Leafs to see what they bring to the table. That's next here on Locked on Wild. BetOnline.ag has you covered all winter long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline.ag remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. So head over to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive that welcome bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline.ag is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. Built Bar gives you that extra fuel you need to bust down the mall doors and battle all the holiday shoppers. Or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something to keep you going. So throw it in your jacket or purse, you never know when you're going to need it. There are so many flavors, you're going to have a hard time picking your favorite. Will you have raspberry or mint brownie, cherry or double chocolate, cookies and cream, or peanut butter? Plus, if you're friends with Santa, you can ask him to throw a few Built Bars in those stockings. With so many flavors, they'd make anyone's Christmas morning a happy one. And if you're looking for a warm treat, here's a holiday tip. Dip your Built Bar into a piping hot cup of cocoa. Let it melt and give your beverage a little bit of that Built Bar flavor. Plus, you'll have a nice melty Built Bar to go with it. Be sure to have a couple napkins, though, to clean up any potential mess. And some of those marshmallow treats that you like around the holidays go great with Built Bar Puffs. They're light, fluffy, and marshmallowy through and through with different flavors all covered in chocolate. They taste so good you won't believe they're packed with protein. So head to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wilds. And again, thank you for making Locked On Wilds your first listen every day. A reminder, we get a bonus episode coming out later today, taking a bigger look at the win for the Minnesota Wild against the New Jersey Devils last night. We were joined by Locked On Devils host Trey Matthews for a little back and forth crossover episode. So you can look for that a little later today. To get your Friday going on the right foot. So this episode, your first listen of the day. The bonus episode today will be your first listen again. And so we thank you doubly for making Locked On Wild your first listen every day. Toronto is coming to town, and the Maple Leafs, as we mentioned, have been just on an absolute tear since a dreadfully slow start. They're 17-6-1 now on the season. And you look at all the way back, if we look on their schedule, they kind of bottomed out at 2-4-1 on October 25th. After that point, they have lost 2 games since October 25th. A 5-1 loss to the LA Kings and a 2-0 loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So in that span, 2-4-1, 15-2 over the last 17 games are the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you look at some of the players that are getting it done. John Tavares with 11 goals and 14 assists in 23 games. William Nylander has 10 goals and 13 assists in 24 games. Austin Matthews, 13 goals, 9 assists, 22 points in 21 games played. Oh, and they also have Mitch Marner. They've got Alexander Kerfoot, Morgan Riley, you name it, up and down the list. They just have an unbelievable talent pool to pull from on the roster. Oh, and the goaltending is no slouch either. Jack Campbell, 13-4. 13-4-1 on the season. Goals against average of 1.72. Save percentage of 943. He has 3 shutouts on the season as well. Some of the advanced stats for this Maple Leafs team. We're going to go to the Corsi 4 percentage. Again, for those that maybe need a little refresher or are unfamiliar what Corsi for percentage measures, it measures the amount of time that you yourself possess the puck when you're out on the ice. And you look at some of these guys. I mean, Matthews, his Corsi for percentage in even strength situations is at 58.5%. So obviously, he is um, helping his team control the puck when he's out there. You look at some of the other guys on the roster. John Tavares, his Corsi for percentage is at 50% right on the dot. And William Nylander, he's at 53% on the season. So Corsi for numbers, not as good as I thought they would be, at least in those situations. But um, this team can flat out score. I mean, they put 8 on the Colorado Avalanche within the last week. And so they're a very dangerous team. They are very capable of going on a sustained run, and they're very capable of handing the Wild a loss in this game coming up this weekend. Oh, by the way, the Minnesota Wild, your Minnesota Wild, are second in the NHL in goals with 88 on the season. And just like that, we saw the goal differential right around even. The Wild are plus 20 now. After their win against New Jersey, they have 88 goals on the season. They've given up 68 on the year, which is right around the middle of the pack in the Central Division. But um, it's not a number I don't think that needs to be super concerned about at this point. But Toronto is going to be as tough of a test as this team has faced at any point during this season. And so if they're going to come away with a win, a couple of things that I'd like to see happen for the Wild. Of course, first, super cliche, I know. First is I'd like to see a hot start like we saw against the Devils. Get out to a 1 or 2 goal lead in the first period and be able to weather the counterpunch from the Maple Leafs, so that you don't skate through the first period and feel like, hey, I think we're in pretty good shape, even though it's a 0-0 tie. Then all of a sudden, Toronto scores twice. You're down 2-0, and you're like, well, now I don't know what we do to try to get back into this. Get the 2-goal lead, so if they score, it's 2-1. You're like, okay, we're still doing all right. So hot start is one. Cam Talbot continuing his strong stretch. I'd be shocked if he does not start for this game against the Maple Leafs. If he doesn't, well, then I'm going to have to figure out something to do to try to get Talbot back in the good graces. And so, all in all, it should be a fantastic game against the Maple Leafs on tomorrow. Then, of course, we've got Edmonton coming up next week as well. So a tough stretch for the Wild. We talked about that yesterday. So go take a look, check it out, and gave some thoughts as to how the Wild can hang on and contend in the month of December. Got through November just fine. If they can stack it and get through December without a whole heaping pile of issues, this team's starting to check off a lot of boxes. They've checked off a lot already, but they're continuing to check off boxes towards the inevitable postseason run. And the Wild, by no coincidence, have one of the better odds to win the Stanley Cup as well, as they continue to just churn out wins here this season. So should be a great one against Toronto. Wild just need to stay disciplined and play their brand of hockey, and they will hopefully be able to send the Maple Leafs home unhappy after, say, a 1-goal win. I'm going to go 5-4. Wild get a 1-goal win over Toronto, and that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked on Wild. Now that your first listen of the day is done, don't forget our bonus episode coming out later this afternoon, recapping in full the 5-2 win for the Wild. And then after that, you can head over to Locked On Bets to get the lowdown on your favorite teams so that your bets can be as good as possible. Locked On Bets is available wherever you listen to podcasts, just like Locked On Wild. We're available wherever you listen. We're also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So make sure to follow us all there as well. And just doing our part to keep you as up to date as possible on your favorite team here in the state of hockey. If a puck drops in the state of Minnesota, Locked On Wild has you covered with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.